And Brian, why is it that your executor or executrix um, has to be in Ontario for them to be a valid executor or executrix?
Well, they don't have to be, but if they're not in Ontario, the legislation in Ontario provides that they may be subject to bonding. That is, they may have to obtain a bond to protect the assets of the estate that they're going to deal with. So that's an awkward process, and it's costly. It means that the estate has to pay for a bond. Um, it causes me to digress to another one of John's questions posed to me, which is who should be an executor? What's the perfect executor? Well, first of all, it can be a person or persons. It can be a corporation. It can be Royal Trust. It can be RBC Trust. It can be TD Trust. They all have their own trust departments that can act as executors. But for you and I, as we talk about families and wills, the perfect executor, I tell people for years, if it's between husband and wife, of course, they would name each other as executors. But the person who might then step in if the survivor of you can't act, it would be somebody who is roughly your own age, because if they're older, obviously they're not going to be around when you go. Someone who knows your mores, that is, knows about your ethics and your mores, knows you. It's handy. We don't all have those kinds of people, but it's handy that it's someone you love and know and trust, and they have the same feeling for you. And it's very handy if it's someone who's not totally out of the water with dealing with matters financial, because you have to deal with the banks and wrapping up the taxes and doing some things. Most people are qualified to do those kinds of things. You don't have to be an accountant unless it's a complex estate. Obviously, if it's a complex estate and it's got complex tax ramifications, having an estate trustee in there, like Royal Trust, TD Trust. I shouldn't leave the rest of them out. There's a big long list. CIBC has a trust company. Scotia has a trust company. They all have the expertise to handle the complexities of managing estates.
So you've kind of touched around it. As you know, my will is badly out of date, and we've talked for a year about my coming in and having it updated. And what's been delaying me, or one of the things, has been finding the right executor.
Right.
So is it possible to have a lawyer as, like, appoint someone from your firm as my executor, or are you better to go to a trust company?
Well, between your lawyer and law firm and the trust company, it usually is impacted by how complex your estate is. So, assuming it's average complexity, it could be your own law firm. But remember this: trustees who aren't your spouse or your family members or whatever, they can charge a fee.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say this very roughly: up to 5% of the value of your estate to act as your estate trustee. For that reason alone, many folks would prefer to have their spouse and or their brother-in-law or whoever act as the trustee and fill those shoes. It's difficult for you. Yes, can it be one of your children or some of your children? Of course it can, if they've got the characteristics I spoke to you about earlier. It can be. If you're concerned that they might not get along, then you'd have to think about that too. It's a challenge to get the perfect estate trustee, but whoever it is that you choose, whether it's corporate or individual, it's someone that you want to talk to while you're doing this and explain to them that you want them to be your estate trustee. Corporations that do it will say, okay, well, here's a 10-page questionnaire. We want a list of where all your accounts are and whatever and what you want done. If it's your eldest son and daughter, or even your spouse, you will have to assist them to tell them where everything is. That helps in the event of an estate.